What is going on, everyone, and welcome to another Black Desert video. So today we're going to be talking about the new fairy skill, the continuous care. So is it worth it? What kind of potions should you use? And a big one that a lot of people have been asking is, what is an elixir rotation and what kind do you use? So I'm going to show you all the settings that I use for both PvP, PvE, and life skilling. So the question is this worth it, continuous care? And the answer is yes and no. I have been doing honestly pretty fine over the years without it. I mean, now it's just automated, so it makes it easier. So do you need it? Maybe, I don't know. But a few days ago, I made a video of getting it to level 50 and rolling for the skill. So if you want to watch that, that was about like 15 minutes. I'll leave a link down in the description or something. That was a pretty interesting one. But now that we have it, a lot of people are probably wondering, is it worth getting the level 5 version? And the answer really is, do you need it? So before you spend a lot of money rolling for continuous care 1 to 5, ask yourself what you're doing. One, do you have enough money to do it? Do you feel like you want to spend any? And 2, how many potions do you think you'll actually need? And yeah, so I am aware this is a money sink, trying to roll for fairy skills, and realistically, I think for a beginner player and beginner to intermediate level player, up from 5 to 12 could be good. And people who use 16 to 20 are people who are high end, whether you're PvPing or PvEing. So keep that in mind. Realistically, before you spend any money, I want to say most of the time you won't be using that many elixirs and potions. So here, let me show you what I have. Now, I made some green ones for the sake of demonstration. And realistically, if you're going to be potting for it and you're going to be spending a lot of time crafting these potions, you're going to be wanting to use the blue ones because they're just straight up better. But what I'm going to be doing is showing you some of the green versions of the potions I use, and then basically if you see it, what you do. For example, let's take this elixir of shock, for example. Most of the potions, if you try to buy it off the market, the blue ones are permanently sold out. So most of the time, if you're doing elixir rotation, you kind of already have to know what you're doing to make it yourself. And the way you do that would be just look at the tooltip and it'll tell you what you need to make it. And then you're going to want to use the blue one. So, where do I start? Okay, so let's start with what I use for PvE grinding. Actually, let me just show you what all these are. So this is the life skill tab. And realistically, for life skilling, I don't really elixir at all. Here's what I do. I use the seafood cron meal, a verdure draft. Sometimes I use the or warm tea when I get it from events, but otherwise it's not really mandatory. Then I use a perfume of swiftness, also not really required either. It just gives you more life XP, making your mastery go up faster. And occasionally when I have some extra like event scrolls that they give, I'll use those. But that's my life skill route. I just want to show you what these potions are before we do anything. So we have, actually, hold on. I don't know what's the best way to show this off. This rotation is more for PvP and PvE because life skills, I don't really use any of them because I'm just lazy. I'll just use a verdure, swiftness, cron meal, and call it a day and just go for that. So this one is for PvP. Now, I would use a cron meal, of course, because that one's just your PvP one. And it's really difficult to recommend elixirs for PvP because if you die, you just kind of lose them. So you really have to know what you're doing. Otherwise, what I see people doing is there's a thing called do I have any on this character or not? Which character? Yeah, these things, the corrupt oil of immortality. So basically what you would do is combine that with certain elixirs, and if even through death they won't disappear. Sometimes I use that, and not even elixir rotation, I just use a draft and then hope for the best, like a giants one, and then immortality it. But here's what we do for potions. I guess those numbers were more just how many of the 16 we have. Now, do you need 20? I mean, most of the time, no. Do you even need 16? Most of the time, no. So here's what I have. Extra damage to humans. Now, keep in mind, this is the PvP version. And some of them will carry over to PvE. So, extra damage to humans. Now, a lot of these are green. So, these are the potions or elixirs that you use. Just get the blue one if you're actually trying to go hard on it. This is more just demonstration and what I could get in time. So then we have the Elixir of Shock, which is the crit, and I believe the blue one is +3. Elixir of Endurance. This one is an optional one. I mean, it's nice to have, but I don't really think of it as a mandatory one in the rotation. Air attack damage. I think the blue one is 15%. Down attack damage, 15% on blue. Grim Reaper, which is it's like basically the frenzy version, but like an individual. Blue one is +3 per hit. This is a very important one. You want blue. Elixir of Life. I think blue is 150. Also an optional one that, I mean, it's nice to have, but 100 HP at high-end PvP is not saving you from anything. If you run into a ball thinking that 100 HP is helping you, it's not. I'm just throwing it out there. Elixir of Fury. I think blue is +8. And so AP is always nice. Back attack damage, 15% on blue. Assassination is a very important one. The big ones are, as you guys have known, the +10% ones, like the different special attacks, like down attack, air attack, recovery, back attack. Next thing we have is a perforation and nullifying damage +5 per back attack. That's also pretty nice. Draining, recover HP on critical hit. Now I believe this stacks with Grim Reaper, and so basically when you hit you get recovery. So if you had a blue, it would be +3, and I believe draining is on crit is +5 or something. Actually, I could just look it up right now. Draining, yeah, +5 on crit. So yeah, you'd be getting, as long as you're hitting, and if you have max crit, let's say you're using the blue one at +3, chances are you're maxed out on your 5 crit anyway, so you'd be getting a lot of hit on recovery, which is really nice. Nullifying damage per critical hit, so a defensive one as well as this one. And all DR, you really want the blue one, which is steel defense, which is all damage reduction +10. So as you guys can tell from the rotation or elixirs you're using here, that's a lot of stats and extra damage. Whereas if you're using a frenzy, I guess we'll use this one as an example. So why is an elixir rotation better? Because, well, one, you're spending, I think technically people have calculated, and if you're using elixirs, it is cheaper than using like a frenzy in PvE, but you're getting more damage if you're using full blues because you just get more of this in general. So for example, a giant draft would be crit hit +3, which just gives you a blue one by that, and then all special attack damage, which is basically air, down, back, and etc. And then plus 150, which is the blue version, and stamina. So basically, this is just using a draft is a lot of blue ones, but it just gives you a little bit extra by using full rotations as well, or elixirs as well. Now for the perfumes, this is a very expensive option, and I generally don't see many people using this for PvP. So here's what we have. Courage perfumes are really, I use them for PvE more realistically, but I've seen people do big pushes and then they just elixir buff and then perfume, go hard in a ball, and then push like for sieges. That's when you do the big pushes. But other than that, caulks are, I don't know, you don't really need it. And these two are for PvE. So those are the elixirs I use. Once again, green is for demonstration, but all of these are still the same elixirs. You just want to get the blue version if possible, or make them. Now, I will say, getting the blue ones, probably not happening off the market, so you're going to have to make it yourself. Just look at what you need, and if you gather a lot, you're probably fine. Now, here is my PvE grinding thing we have. So I selected 16 out of 16, and stuff that I think would be important. If you had 20, yeah, just add more stuff to it, but I'm gonna be honest with you, even for PvE, I don't really use elixir rotations. I just use a draft and go in, because I don't grind the spots yet that I really need them. I would say if you're using elixirs, chances are you're going to be at like very tough spots like Olin's, and you're doing a 3-man crypt, which is basically a 1%. If you are in the top 1% of players that are geared, you're grinding there for Deboreka belts. I've seen people use full elixirs at Ash Forest, but at my level, I can go in with a draft and be just fine. I think if you're lower geared and you're thinking about trying it, it is safer to just use elixirs as well. But once again, getting them is the hardest part. Then we have a bracing spirit perfume, which gives monster AP, health, crit. So if you're using bracing, you don't really need the shock with it because you're overcapped on it. But so you could take that off if you're using a bracing. But if you aren't using a spirit or bracing, then feel free to use that one. And realistically, I don't think you need it because your gear and crystals kind of make up for it. So I think shock is one of those ones that you probably can you say is optional. But yeah. So what else do I use for? If you didn't have any bracings, what do? You could use Perfume of Courage. I probably wouldn't recommend it because they're kind of expensive. So Caulks elixirs if you're trying out new spots and you're scared of dying, but realistically, Spirit Perfume elixirs are the way to go. They're not too expensive, and they give you the 3 stats you really need. This bracing one is like you combine it with the things you grind from the Mountain of Eternal Winter, and like if you're grinding Jade Starlight Forest, you get the things to turn it into you turn these spirit ones into the bracing ones. So it just gives you the +5 monster AP on top, which is it's just kind of nice, but will you really notice a difference? Probably not. So there's that. And then since I don't really have anything else that I remembered off the top of my head, I just picked up some scrolls that I would use, like let's just say we don't have any 600 and we would have 200s, because you get this one daily from your Black Spirit or whatever. You hit your Y button, and then occasionally you get the daily things. So that's what I have. You could use the 200 scroll daily, and then whatever extra scrolls you need. But overall, that has been my fairy elixirs. Now, once again, I just want to say before anything that whether it's worth it to you is realistically on you. And in my opinion, 5 to 8 realistically is good for most players. And if you get 12, that's good. Chances are you probably won't even be using 12. 16 to 20 are for the people who are grinding super high-end spots. And if you are literally the 1% or just have like infinite amounts of money, then go for continuous tier 5. But I think if you get 4 and you're considering rolling for the 5, ask yourself, do you really need it? Or do you even have 20 potions to use? And so let me just give you a realistic example of what I would use. Okay, so let's say we are grinding somewhere. Let's just pretend this is the grinding tab. Use 1 food, pop a frenzy, or if that's too expensive and you don't want to do it, pop like a beast or giant's draft. And generally that's good enough. If you have a tent buff and everything else, like that also adds stuff. Perfumes are optional. They are kind of expensive, so I wouldn't really recommend using the courage perfumes unless you just have more silver than you really know what to do with, which 99% of you don't, and you have a goal to upgrade your gear. So spirit perfumes, if you can get them, probably your best budget option. They're not bad. I still use them like most of the time anyway, but I think most of the time most people will be using these and setting scrolls on there. Like, let's say you have your daily 200. If you're on season, they give you quite a lot of these actually. And then your 200% scroll. I don't know, whatever else you have. So realistically, I use kind of like under 8 to 12 would be a good option, like a good medium for everyone. But if you are full elixiring it or just trying it out, it is better. It is very hard to get all the blue elixirs though, unless you kind of already have a alchemy gathering setup. So yeah, hopefully this was a little insightful and informative, and you learned something on elixirs that I used. So just once again, green is for demonstration, and if you're gonna take it very seriously, I'd recommend using the blue rotations. So once again, I'll go over all the elixirs I use. This one is a blue one, so human damage, PvP one, crit. You don't really need it, especially if you're using cron food and like villa buffs and all that stuff. I think there's a good chance you'll be capped out at max crit already, so optional. Stamina, it's nice to have, but optional. Air attack, down attack, pretty mandatory. Grim Reaper is mandatory for most things. HP optional. AP mandatory. Back attack very good. You want that. And these are just defensives if you think you need them. So only you know how much DR you need, and if you think if you need the defensive ones or not. And draining, also a mandatory one. So let's go over it again. Important. Oh wait, hold on. Let me just let's go pick a new one. PvP, important. So yeah, I have 9, and let's say you don't use a perfume. You have 8, cool. 8 skills, continuous tier 2, and you're still doing good. 12, 16, and 20, just a bonus. So hopefully that was informative. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop a quick like on the video. And if you are new, once again, in all seriousness, hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I have tried to make a lot more guide videos and beginner-friendly stuff, so if you are starting the game or enjoying it, be sure to check it out. And I'll see you tomorrow.